Welcome to CityLit Project's Baltimore API Spotlight for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Each week throughout the month of May, we will be featuring a series of readings and interview videos posted to our social media and our YouTube page, showcasing some of the great Asian American poets, writers, playwrights, and graphic artists that are brewing up goodness in Charm City. So be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at CityLit Project, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you'll be notified when new videos go up and you can keep up with the series throughout the month. My name is Aditya Desai. I'm a writer and editor here in Baltimore, and I've been working with CityLit Project since 2016 as a volunteer, as a board member, and as a secretary of the board as well. And today I am very excited to bring our guest on. Our guest is the writer and the graphic artist Sunmi. Sunmi is a cartoonist whose work explores themes of emotional distance and fantastical femininity within a framework of queer and Korean diasporic identity, mythology, and history. Their debut young adult graphic novel, FIREBIRD, which follows along these threads, will be published with HarperCollins in 2023. Welcome them aboard. Say hi, Sunmi.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hello.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Would you like to start us off with a reading?
Yeah. So what I'm going to read is one of the zines that I have here. This one that I actually did for a residency in Chicago a few years back. It's called Cities as Vessels. And when I made it, I wanted it to be like I don't know, I just had in mind like a long book. I just thought it would be interesting if, it had a different sort of format. So yeah, I just wanted to show what it looks like in print before reading it on the computer where I have a scan of it. Yeah, so this is the zine. It has this little band. My other zine, real quick, is this little one called Just One 10 Minutes, which features the characters that I am currently writing about in the graphic novel that I'm working on. So more on that later, but I'll share my screen now. Here's the zine that I made called Cities as Vessels. Okay, this city is a vessel for your familiar neighboring dreams, now less familiar and lost. Your insecurities, your longing, your homeward gaze, your fears, your lack of control, your roots, your inherited trauma, your father's adolescence, your grandmother's grave, your adolescence, and your remembrance of home. Reflecting the people it holds, I think of the cities I visited, known, and will never step foot in, retracing backwards and forwards, reshaping memories and emotions. I walk through built landscapes and know I'll belong next to the people who care for a shared future and next to waters that never stand still. So included in the back of it is a list of cities that correspond with each spread, each illustration. The order of those cities is San Francisco, Baltimore, Seoul, Pyongyang, Honolulu, and Fremont. I guess I should have also said the states and countries, I guess. But yeah, I created this zine in thinking about essentially the migration of my family and myself.
Are these cities that your family lived in at one point or another, or kind of what made you choose these particular ones?
I chose these cities, because they all are places that I've been or places that my family choose to move to.
Mm-hmm.
So that being that, I think in around the 70s, I believe my grandmother on my father's side and my father and his sister moved to Honolulu in Hawaii, in the US. Or actually, I think he might have lived in California before and then went to Hawaii. It's a little unclear. It's, what my parents told me. The gist being that he did live in Hawaii for a good portion of his life. And he married my mom, and then they moved to California again, where they moved to Fremont in the Bay Area, about an hour away from San Francisco City. And my mom is from Seoul, South Korea, and her extended family is still there. I chose to move to Baltimore for school, for university, and so that's how I'm here.
Right.
And my parents told me that our family is actually from Pyongyang, North Korea. So
Mm,
that is, I don't know a lot about it, but that is what I was told,
mm.
that my family is from North Korea and, escaped South during the war.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So that is sort of a list of places that kind of all hold some sort of meaning to me, I guess. And so when I made this scene, I was kind of and also I guess like I was in Chicago, a new city that I think I had visited Chicago before, but I in doing this residency program, unfortunately it doesn't exist anymore. It was
Mhm.
called the Transit Residency Program. And it was a really cool, really great program that had this sort of format called inbound and outbound. So the goal of this residency was that it was both funding artists from Chicago to go other places, and then also having people come to Chicago and spend a week doing a residency. So it was a really great program, and I got to be in Chicago for a week, do this great comic show there called Chicago Alternative Comics Expo. Um, and also, I just had access to this studio there called, that also unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, but it's
Mm.
called Chicago Publishers Resource Center. And they had a risograph machine there and a lot of resources for bookbinding and making zines and stuff. So it was really awesome. And
Mm.
so I got to print it there in 2018. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
the
that's,
gist
I
of
mean,
it.
it's so fascinating to hear you share that, and thank you for doing so.
Yeah.
It as you were kind of talking about it, one of the things that I started thinking about was um the CityLit Project mostly covers writers, and I think
Mhm.
we've done it before, but it's very rare that we have graphic artists and people who are using the visual
Mhm.
component of their writing as well. And there's something about this zine, like you said, this kind of this very just long book. It's this
Yeah.
long shape, and how that kind of resembles the tall buildings of a city.
Yeah. And also
Um,
like vases, and
mhm.
uh, bottles. I
Right, right,
yeah,
yeah,
I just really like ceramics too. So it was something that
sure.
I kind of was like putting together all these things in my brain and
Mhm.
uh creating these illustrations, thinking about these sort of forms, I guess.
Definitely. Yeah, but I think that
Yeah,
speaks
this is the
to
cover.
both the ways that cities can be different and have a character to themselves as
Mhm.
vessels, as you say.
Mhm.
Um, and but at the same time, there's a certain not a sameness, but a kind of an anonymity that exists within
Mhm.
cities that to a certain extent, as you move from one to the other, you can feel like you're kind of amongst these very tall or very long structures,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
It's like
and
they're all
these.
man-made structures. Yeah,
Mhm.
like these buildings. And so they can have unique characteristics, but also, you walk through lots of different cities and they kind of do have a similar feeling.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Mhm.
you're mentioning that this residency isn't there anymore, the space
Yeah.
that it's in, and that's also just one of those things, as the
Mhm.
nature of cities and how they change and how they
Yeah.
change shape and morph.
Mhm.
um and yeah, it's, I mean, it's a brief work, but
Mhm.
this the image and the idea and the theme is so strong that I think it packs a lot in there. And
Ew.
it's really capturing a lot about what it means to be in this kind of a space.
Mhm.
So um, I want to see if we can maybe broaden that out a little bit, from
Yeah.
this piece to maybe just kind of your career overall, which is what got you into writing and drawing and art as well? What's your origin story as an artist?
So, my origin, I guess, is that I have always been an avid reader and just enjoy lots of different creative stuff. So, I was when I it's funny to me that I always think that it was like when I was a kid, this was actually kind of exactly what I wanted to be doing and was sort of what I did as a kid. That as a kid, I used to just take copy paper and draw and write my own stories and then just put it together, you know, fold it, staple it. And essentially I was making zines as a kid, but I didn't think about that word. I was just doing it, like, because I read so many books and I was like, I want to do this too.
Mhm.
So essentially, like, I am doing what I've always wanted to do. And I sometimes am like, that's really wild. That
Mhm.
when I am thinking about what Asian American identity is or means, I feel like definitely I know what I don't want out of it, which is that I don't want it to be used in a way that's like in the model minority sense of feeding into white ideas, you know, white colonization, you know, like the history of colonization and capitalism. Those things are things I think a lot about. And so knowing that the history of Asian American as a label and, you know, its history is one that was meant for organizing and political education and all that. And so I feel that for myself, when I think about Asian American, I want it to be uh, for community and for organizing and for connecting to people in both the our sort of understanding of the United States, like our, you know, combined shared struggles and things that we are going to fight for together, like with other people, you know, of many communities and identities. But when I think of what it means to be Korean, I guess, I
Mhm.
feel like that has this connection to that place and then to the history and the culture and those things that I have a connection to, but also I have my own interpretation of it, maybe that
Right.
because I live here. And so everything is something that I learn or I read
Mhm.
and sort of absorb, you know? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's I love the way that you put it, that you, when you think about what it means to be Asian or Asian American, you're thinking about what you don't want out of it or what you don't
Mhm.
want it to be. And while it sounds like that sounds like a negation, or that you're pushing something aside, I don't, I guess I'm not seeing it that way. When I heard you say that, what I was thinking of was, yeah, someone who is taking into account that these labels that we have are um, created and used for certain goals or certain utility,
Mhm.
but they're not necessarily a kind of a one-to-one reflection of who the people actually are.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and especially for you being an artist, the idea of not knowing what you don't want, or setting aside, you know, the language and the words that people are already using, I think, is a way of also maybe, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like you're almost freeing yourself up to exploring the possibilities of what could be, that maybe we haven't
Mhm.
explored yet.
Yeah.
That maybe is kind of still wide open, the horizons there.
There's definitely aspects that are conscious and then aspects that are subconscious. That I do think that the reason why I describe myself in this way, that like my work explores these themes and is in this framework of who I am, I guess, that I have this very multifaceted identity of being queer and Korean and Asian and everything. And all of those things have history and a mythology and like a lot of, you know, just so much to it, that there is a subconscious aspect where it's like who I am comes through in my work. And then there's the conscious aspect of, yeah, when I maybe like created this scene, I was specifically thinking about cities, vessels, my family, like the path, the like sort of just like, yeah, just like all these emotions and things. Being in Baltimore and having come to Baltimore to be part of the institution that was MICA,
Mhm.
you know, I went there for my undergraduate, and then to graduate and just be a person in Baltimore, I guess, that yeah, that I've always felt that I've tried and learned a lot to have an attitude of like for one, one way I've thought about it before is that I felt like a visitor, especially when I was a student, because this is not my home. This is a place that I came to study. And so as a visitor, I wouldn't want to pretend that I know what it's like to live in Baltimore or be, you know, a Baltimorean. But ever since graduating, and I graduated, and then I lived in a bunch of different neighborhoods, worked a bunch of different jobs, met a lot of different people, and yeah, so now I really do feel like I live here, and I really care about the city, and I, you know, have seen so much and learned so much from other people. So I feel that getting to be here as a API artist is something that guess I don't know. I guess I just don't take it for granted, and I don't, you know, and it's so that's why it's so important to me to be involved in whatever causes, you know, in the city, like to be involved with our group, bars, the Baltimore Asian Resistance and Solidarity. I am also part of Sanctuary Streets, like but like, you know, I just like am part of their listserv, and I help
Right.
with the court accompaniment when they need help. But essentially, yeah, like I pay attention to the city because I am here, and so I want to respect it and the people, and you know, yeah. I pay
Yeah. I mean,
taxes
yeah,
to the city now,
that's
so I am
right.
here.
That's what it's about. It's all just about
Oh,
paying attention. Yeah,
yeah.
making
Mhm.
space. Um,
Yeah.
keeping witness for sure.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Well, I would, if you'll indulge us, I would
Mhm.
love to keep witness to maybe another selection from your work, if you'd
Mhm.
like to share.
Yeah. So I can talk more about the other zine that I made. This book,
Mhm.
Just One 10 Minutes. This little zine. And what I am currently working on is a young adult graphic novel. Yeah. So it's and I guess this comes back to like the way that I write, which is a way of processing memories and emotions. So the characters of this book, so to kind of give the summary of the plot, it's about a girl named Caroline, and she's a sophomore in high school. Um, she decides to join an after-school peer tutoring program, you know, because in her mind she's like, I need to do this. This is gonna be good for my college apps, like, you know, all that stuff, like volunteer and that. And through that program, she meets a girl named Kim, who is a senior at her high school, and yeah, it's a story about their friendship primarily, but it's also the way that I tend to describe it is that it's I think a feeling that a lot of queer people are very familiar with, but also I think is a universal um, kind of sentiment or something that people feel, which is that it's that feeling when you're young that you're like, I've met this person and we're getting to know each other. Do I have a crush on them or do I want to be like them? Because this
Mhm.
was something that I felt a lot as a kid, that I had so much uncertainty and instability in my life. And I was, you know, forming my identity, you know, as, you know, young adults and teens do,
Right.
that for me, I was like, I had so many friendships and crushes, I guess, where I was like, do I actually like have a crush on you? Like, am I attracted to you or do I admire you? Do I like think to myself, like, you have these sort of traits that are really cool to me, and I wish that I was more outgoing or more funny or more like anything like nice, like, you know, like, I don't know. It's like, yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very much a book about queer Asian Americans. Like Caroline is Korean American, and
Mhm.
Kim is mixed Korean and Filipino. And so, yeah, I wrote these characters, and they're based just like off of my memories and experience in high school, and also my memories of all the people I knew, which were mostly Asian because I grew up in the Bay Area, which has a huge Asian American population, very diverse one. So
Mhm.
in writing this book, I was very clear to myself and to the publishers in pitching it that this cast is diverse, but not for the sake of diversity. This is just the a true
Mhm.
experience. You know, this was my experience, and so this is a story about a bunch of Asian American kids with different sort of backgrounds. You know, they all have different experiences. So yeah.
it seems like we've had a number of years where this idea of, for lack of a better word, diverse literature is still oriented towards writing towards the white lens. It's, yes, there's representation, but it is representation for the sake of a white viewership to notice us. And I think what you're working on, and what I'm seeing a little bit more in the past few years, is this trend towards moving towards writing and creating and drawing and illustrating for just representing the lives as we live them, which, yeah, I mean, if you are from a certain background, it bears to reason that your whole world might just be people from that background. And that those are the stories you have to tell. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about representation and here I am, but, you know, we just all are.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. Yeah, I best of luck to finishing the rest of that manuscript, and it's coming out in 2023, right? FIREBIRD.
A while from now.
Okay, so we still have a while to go, but you know, anyone watching this, put it on your Goodreads, put it on your calendars.
Publishing takes a long time.
Definitely. Well, we're gonna start drumming up, getting the lines outside all the bookstores, starting from this.
Thank you.
People will start camping out. But no, this has been great. Yeah, Sunmi, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Aditya.